Since a cat doesn't spin a cocoon and wake up a butterfly city crumbles and needs to die. She had read 3,012 people before you walked through her door. She kept count for the math, for the discipline. She liked knowing the exact number of human beings she had sat across from in that small upstairs room. Politicians, veterans, mothers who couldn't sleep, men who had put bodies in the ground and never told anyone. Is to see a hero fail, fall, die trying. In spite of everything you've done for them, eventually they will hate you. Why bother? Saints, cheaters. A state senator once off the record. A homeless woman she didn't charge. She had seen all of it. She had her protocols, her grounding techniques, her 3-second exit ritual in case the field she was reading turned ugly fast. She had a small brass bell by her door that she'd had blessed in 3 different traditions just in case. You can only manipulate the fire. I can't create it. You are a god among insects. Never let anyone tell any different. Then you sat down and she did not read you. This was last Tuesday, late afternoon. The light coming through her studio window was that orange, slow, late October kind of light that makes everything look like it's about to mean something. There was Palo Santo burning in the corner, a small black cat asleep on a folded blanket near her left foot. I believe whatever doesn't kill you simply makes you stranger. An iPhone face down on the table between you because she always asks clients to put their phone face down. She had her hands in her lap, her eyes half closed. The calm, neutral, slightly bored expression of somebody who had done this 12,000 times. If I pull that off, will you die? It would be extremely painful. You're a big guy for you. For 9 minutes, she said nothing. 9, not as a stylistic choice, not as part of her usual opening sequence, just 9 real, unplanned minutes inside which she was trying to figure out what to do. Because what she was supposed to be doing in those 9 minutes was reading your field, the energy that comes off you, the colors, the patterns, the small, not quite sounds that a trained reader feels as sounds in their chest. The information should have been arriving within 45 seconds. That was her standard. 45 seconds and the first thread comes through. Nothing came through. Not because you were empty. The opposite. Because the volume coming off you was so far past the calibration of her instruments that her instruments just gave up. I know what it's like to lose. Feel so desperately that you're right, yet to fail nonetheless. The way a microphone gives up when somebody screams directly into it. You weren't quiet. You were loud in a frequency she could not process. She tried 2 more techniques. She tried the Heartsea center pull, which is her most reliable one. She has described it in workshops as leaning gently against a door and waiting for it to open. She leaned. The door wasn't there. There was just a hallway. And the hallway kept going. You know, it all makes sense now why you favored Thor all these years. Because no matter how much you claim to love me. And the hallway didn't end at any room she could read. She tried the throat line scan. Nothing. Same problem. Information so dense and so unfamiliar that her trained nervous system, calibrated by 23 years of practice, didn't recognize it as information at all. It recognized it as weather, as atmospheric pressure, as something happening at a level her body wasn't designed to register. Must feel good. It's about 2 billion people all over the world that looks like us. Their lives are a lot harder. Wakanda has the tools to liberate them all. Then she opened her eyes, looked at you, and said the sentence she has never said to a paying client in 23 years of practice. Whatever you are, I'm not qualified. You probably thought in that moment that she was overdoing it, being theatrical. Spiritual people are like that sometimes. You probably almost smiled because the seriousness on her face was so out of proportion to what you understood to be happening in that room. You had paid $80. You had taken time off work. You had driven across town. You had brought a question you had been carrying around for a year. And you wanted, frankly, somebody to make it smaller, to name it, to put it in a category, to hand it back to you in a shape you could carry. She did not do that. She stood up. She told you gently that she would refund the session immediately. You won't kill us yourself. You wouldn't silly your hands, but you'll damn us to a black hole for eternity. She would not be charging you. She wanted to make sure you understood she was not refusing because of anything you had done. She was refusing because what was sitting across from her was not within her certification, and she was, in her exact words, not going to pretend to read something that is reading me back. She walked you to the door. The small brass bell on the door frame rang the way it always rings. She watched you cross the parking lot. She watched you get in your car. She watched you sit there for a moment looking at your phone, not doing anything in particular. She watched until you pulled out of the lot and the taillights were gone. Then she went back inside and she did not take another client for the rest of that day. Let me describe what she actually saw because she is never going to tell you. And I want you to understand the full picture of what walked into that room and what walked back out. In her usual practice, a person's field looks like a candle. Some candles burn small and steady. Some burn tall and warm. Some flicker. That's what makes you dangerous. It's not the mask. It's not the skills. It's your ideology. Some are about to go out and they don't know it yet. Some are just read from a worse fire and you can see the soot on them. She is, in her own words, a candle reader. That is what she does. That is what she has done for 2 decades. You were not a candle. You were not even fire. You were the thing that fires come from. She has described what she saw since that night to exactly one person, her teacher of 19 years, in a phone call she made at 11:42 p.m., the same Tuesday as a furnace with a face. A heat source that wasn't burning anything visible. A field that wasn't shaped like a person's field is usually shaped. There was no edge to it. It just kept going. She tried 3 different times to find the outline of it. There was no outline. There was no boundary where you stopped and the room started. There was also no fear in it. That's what really got her. She has read frightening people before. Killers come in with a particular kind of cold. People in crisis come in with the kind of shrieking. You're so proud of being a mutant. Where's your mark? I have been marked once, my dear, and let me assure you no needle shall ever touch my skin again. Powerful people, the politicians, the executives come in with a hum like a transformer. You came in with quiet, just quiet. The quiet of a field so old it had nothing left to prove. The quiet of someone who had been somewhere none of her vocabulary covered and had come back and was now ordering coffee like a normal person on a normal Tuesday. She tried one more time to read the surface of you, the social you, the everyday you, the you that drove across town to her studio because you had a question about a relationship or a job or a parent who was getting older. That surface was there. She could see it, she could even read it, but underneath it, where the field should have lived, where everyone's field lives, there was no field. There was a furnace, and the furnace was not interested in being read. When she said she wasn't qualified, she meant it the way a kindergarten teacher would mean it if somebody sat a Nobel physicist in their classroom. She was not refusing to teach you. She was acknowledging that the wrong person was in the wrong chair. Let me tell you the closest thing she had previously experienced. How about a magic trick? I'm going to make this pencil disappear. Screaming. Because I want you to understand the gap. 4 years ago, a man came into her studio on a referral from another reader who had refused him. He was tall, soft-spoken, polite. He had paid the standard rate in cash. He had sat down where you sat. And within 40 seconds, she had felt something move through the room that she has described in her private notes as cold theater. She read him for the full hour. She did not refund him. She gave him 3 carefully worded sentences at the end of the session and walked him out. She locked the door behind him. She sat on the floor for an hour. She lit every candle in the studio. She called a friend and asked her to stay on the phone while she walked to her car. That was the worst session of her career until last Tuesday. It was the only session she ever talked about in supervision more than twice. She thought she had encountered her ceiling that day. Leave us. No. Do you feel in charge? She had not encountered her ceiling that day. She had encountered a difficult client. Difficult is normal. Difficult has a category. Difficult fits inside her training. You did not fit inside her training. You did not register as difficult. You did not register as anything inside her established vocabulary at all. The cold cedar man was in her own quiet reassessment this week. A person operating well within the human spectrum, behaving badly. You are something else. She is still working out the word for it. She will probably not find one. Now you probably want to know how you got this way, because most days you don't feel like a furnace. Most days you feel like a normal person who is late on a credit card payment and didn't sleep great and is doing their best to be a reasonable adult about it. Let me explain. Now it's here, or should I say, I am a field like yours, doesn't get built in a good year. It gets built in a years nobody wants to talk about. It gets built in the seasons where you lost something you couldn't replace and you didn't tell anyone and you kept going. It gets built every time you got betrayed by somebody you would have died for and you decided quietly not to die for them anymore and you didn't make a scene about it. It gets built every time you sat in a parking lot in your car for 45 minutes deciding whether to go to therapy that day. It gets built every time you forgave somebody who was never going to apologize. It gets built every time you watch somebody else get the credit for the work you did and you kept doing the work anyway and you didn't say a word. It gets built every time you walked away from a fight you would have won. That I am the ill intent who set upon the traveler on a road that he should not have been on. It gets built every time you let someone keep the last word because you understood somewhere in your stomach that the last word, because you understood somewhere in your stomach that the last word didn't matter the way they thought it did. It gets built every time you cried in a car at 11 p.m. and then washed your face and went inside and made dinner for somebody who would never know you'd been crying. It gets built every time you sent the harder text instead of the easier one. It gets built every Sunday afternoon you sat with the silence in your apartment instead of running from it. Nobody saw any of that. That's the point. Nobody clapped. Nobody handed you a certificate. Nobody filmed it for the timeline. You did it in private in the rooms with the dim light. On the days that didn't have a name, you came out the other side of each of those rooms slightly different than you went in. The world didn't notice the change, and Spider-Man come out to play, because the change was internal. It was being made at a frequency the world doesn't pick up, but she picked it up. She picked it up the second you sat down. She picked up the sum total of every quiet, unwitnessed decision you had ever made to do the harder thing and keep walking. Decades of small private victories, none of which you bragged about, all of which got stored, and she could not stop staring at the storage. That is what made her hand stop working. That is why she said the sentence. What she was looking at on the other side of her coffee table on a Tuesday afternoon was a person who had become over years in silence, without an audience, deeply, unmistakably, unbearably real. The kind of real that gets built only when nobody is watching. The kind of real you cannot fake, cannot perform, cannot post about. The kind of real that, when it enters a room, makes every performative person in the room suddenly feel extremely visible. You want society to accept you, but you can't even accept yourself. The kind of real that an energy reader's instruments simply do not have a setting for. Tuesday night, she made the call to her teacher. The teacher has been her teacher for 19 years. The teacher has heard about, by her own count, every kind of energy that walks through a healer's door. The teacher was mostly silent on the phone. The teacher asked 3 questions and then the teacher said very slowly with the kind of pause that you don't interrupt. You did the right thing. Do not try to read them again and do not under any circumstance write about it. She has not written about it. She has thought about you, though, every day since. Not in a flattering way, not in a love interest way, in the way somebody who has spent 23 years studying a thing thinks about the day a thing showed up that contradicted 23 years of study. She is quietly rebuilding her entire model. You are not a story she tells at dinner. You are an asterisk in her professional life, a footnote, a do not read. And here's what's important. She is not afraid of you. She is humbled by you. There is a difference. Fear flinches. Humility goes still. She went still. She went still. She went still. This is what she has been carrying around for the past 6 days. And every time a new client walks through her door now, she catches herself for half a second, wondering if she is going to feel that hallway open again. She isn't. You don't grow furnaces every week. People will die. I'm a man of my word. Lauder. You don't even grow them every decade. The thing she felt in that room was not common. It was not even particularly modern. It was old. Old in the way mountains are old. Old in a way that did not consent to be in her appointment book. Thursday afternoon, 2 days after you left, she took her next client, a woman in her early 40s, recently divorced, looking for direction, a completely normal session. Within 45 seconds, the woman's field opened the way fields are supposed to open. A small, warm candle, soft at the edges. 3 or 4 threads of grief stitched into the surface, easy to read. And the healer felt something she had not felt in 23 years of practice. Relief. Real embarrassing professional relief. Because for 2 full days, somewhere underneath everything else, she had been quietly afraid that her instruments had broken, that whatever happened on Tuesday had taken something from her, that she would not be able to do her work again. She could do her work again. Her work was fine, her instruments were fine. Tuesday hadn't broken anything. Tuesday had just shown her that her instruments had limits. She had never been close enough to a limit to notice. It ended time you've all been living on. And those limits are not a problem for 99% of the people who will ever walk into her studio. Her instruments will keep working perfectly for everybody she sees for the next 23 years. But she now knows what an exception looks like. She knows the shape of it. She knows the temperature of it. And every single time she opens her studio door for a new client now, there is a tiny part of her, a part she will never talk about publicly, a part she will only ever mention to her teacher that braces just a little, just in case the hallway opens again. It won't, but she braces. That's the legacy you left in her practice. Not damage, not trauma, just a small, permanent professional humility. The kind every real practitioner eventually needs, and most never get the gift of receiving. Now let me talk to you directly for a second, because you might be hearing all of this and thinking, okay, that's a nice story that doesn't actually tell me what to do with my life on Wednesday. So here's what it tells you. Frequency that's slightly different from the people around you, that you process loss and pressure and silence and time itself a little differently than the average person at the grocery store. You were right. You weren't being dramatic. You weren't being arrogant. You weren't being a teenager about it. You were being accurate. There is now a measurement instrument in a studio across town from you. Pretty, isn't it? Perfectly balanced as all things should be. That has confirmed it. Not that you needed the confirmation, but there it is sitting on the table. Second, the reason most relationships in your life feel uneven is not because you are too needy. It is not because you are too much. It is not because you are too much. It is because you are broken. It is because you are not registering at the same range. The people closest to you are reading at FM. You're broadcasting on a frequency that requires a different antenna entirely. That is not their fault. It is not your fault. It is an information problem. Some people will eventually upgrade their antenna. Most won't. You have to be at peace with both. Third, your loneliness is not a personal failure. It is a side effect of the build. The thing that makes you legible to almost no one is the same thing that makes you in a much deeper way witnessed by something much larger. You don't need to be heard by the people around you the way they need to be heard by each other. You are already in a long, quiet conversation with something they cannot perceive. Most days that's a private comfort. Some days it is a heavy job. Both are correct. Both are part of the deal. Fourth, you should not under any circumstance try to make yourself smaller for the people who can't read you. You should not turn down the furnace. You should not pretend to be a candle so that the candles around you feel less self-conscious. Candles are necessary. Candles are loved, but you were not built to be one. We have no quarrel with your people. An ant has no quarrel with a boot. And the tiredness you've been feeling for the past few years, that bone-level tiredness that no amount of sleep is fixing, is almost entirely the tiredness of pretending. Fifth, and this is the most important one, do not ever brag about this to anybody. Do not tell the story at brunch. Do not tweet about it. Do not turn it into a personality. The minute you start performing it, it stops being real. The instruction is the same instruction it was when you were 11 years old, alone in your room, building the first parts of this without knowing what you were doing. Keep building. Don't narrate. Don't seek confirmation. You already have it. Here is the last thing I want to give you tonight. Everyone, warn me that prison animal wants something when it needs something, other things. The healer is awake right now, not in a romantic way, not in a she cannot stop thinking about you way. In the way somebody is awake when they have just encountered a problem that their training did not prepare them for. She is making a tea she does not need. She is looking at her old notebooks. She is reading a section of a book she hasn't opened in 11 years. She's doing the slow, quiet, professional work of integrating a thing that broke her model. She is going to be fine. She is good at her work. She will keep doing it. 312 will become 3970 by the end of the month. None of them will be you. You will not be invited back. She does not give second sessions to clients she could not read on principle. And honestly, you aren't going to come back anyway. You weren't built for that kind of room. You were built to be the room. But here's what you do with all of this information. Nothing. You do absolutely nothing. You don't text the friend who recommended her to tell them the story. You don't post a vague caption about it. You don't add it to the small private file you keep of moments when somebody almost saw who you are. You just hold it quietly in the same place you've been holding everything else for the past 20 years. And you let it sit there next to all the other small confirmations the world has given you. Very rarely and only when you weren't asking. Because the moment you start telling the story, you are no longer the furnace. You are a person telling a furnace story. And those are two completely different things, and the universe knows the difference, and so do you. Go live your day. She didn't sleep last night. You did.